Okay, hello everyone. I'm Will from Data to Insight. I'm going to be the person leading the Absolute Beginner Python workshops. What I'm going to do today is show you how to go from the stage of nothing, no GitHub, no Python, no nothing, no Python installed on your computer, to get to a position where you can start using Python on your work computer safely and without needing Python installed. One thing I will say for those attending the workshops is that you will need to, when you get to the workshop, before the first workshop, have all of this done and already be logged into a Codespace being the thing where we're going to be coding Python as we start, because the workshops have a large number of participants. We won't have time to go through and wait for everyone to get started. So I will tend to start the workshops, the actual content, at about 5 past, because it gives everyone time to come back from lunch and to get set up. So first things first, we need to navigate to GitHub. You can see I've made a new email address for this, and I've used a new fresh browser, so it's as if I've never been to GitHub before. And you can see I've made 2 searches. I've made a new email address on Gmail, and I've searched for GitHub. So I'm going to go to GitHub here, and let's build a GitHub. So you can sign up here, or you can sign up here. As I said, I've made a new email address at gmail.com. I've made an email address, and it shouldn't say at @escc.escc. One thing about making a GitHub is that you should use your personal email address, not your work email address, because you want your GitHub to stay with you forever, because it keeps the history of all the coding you've done on it, and also you'll be storing your code on it, and you don't want to lose a work email address and lose all of that history of code and things. You can, and it's something I've done because I use my GitHub purely for work, is have it associated with your personal email address, but have all emails go to your work email address. So I put my email address here. I hope it's correct, and I'm going to sign up for GitHub. There we go. It's remembered my email, and I'm going to press continue. There we go. Let's create a password. Password needs a number and a lowercase letter. Okay. There we go. Password is strong. A username. Oh, there we go. I'm going to delete this account later, so it doesn't matter what my username is. I would have a username that you want associated with you forever. So probably not something to do with your local authority, but it's nice to have your name in it, so it's easier to see, but you don't have to. Lots of people do use classic kind of internet era usernames, but whatever. But don't worry about having your local authority in it, because if you have it forever and you work somewhere different, not a local authority, you probably don't want that in it. Anyway, I'm going to press continue. I do not want to receive product updates, so I'm going to press continue again. There we go. Verify my account. Solve this puzzle so we know you're real. Oh, it's a different one this time. Match this angle. Okay. Submit. That's 1 done. It's a different puzzle each time. So normally it's goats. There we go. Create account. Right. They're going to send me to my email, which I have open, a verification code. So I'm going to my email, and here we go. I'm going to Control-C. So I've copied that, and I'm going to paste that in there, and it's all worked. How many team members will be working with you? For this, even though I'm teaching workshops, I'm going to say just me, because I'm only going to be coding in my own place to code. Am I a student or a teacher? In this case, I am a teacher. Right, let's not worry about any of these. I'm just going to press continue. There we go. I am just going to continue for free. You will obviously click student. Right, so here we are. This is a GitHub, and we need to create somewhere to code. So to create somewhere to code, we need to create a thing called a repository. A repository is where we store code. Typically, when we're coding, we will code on our computers, and we will send that code to GitHub to save it so that anyone else can access it or look at it, and you can access it from multiple computers, and also because it keeps a history of every save you've had. Really, what GitHub is a version control system, which allows you to make changes to your work and not worry that they might mess something up, because you can revert back to any past state of your work. So often when we're working, we'll do things like we'll save things as final, final.1, final, real final. Well, GitHub's just a nice way to do that with code in one place, where you don't have to remember which is your actual final work. And if you do make a mistake, you can tweak changes. So what we need is we need a repository, and we need to start putting some code in there. So let's create a repository with that green button there. What I'm going to call this? I'm going to call this Python-learning repo being short for repository. What's the description? I will use this to store Python code from workshops. Doesn't matter. Public or private, doesn't matter. If you're collaborating with other people, I think you can only go private if you are have a paid account. I would say go public, because if you do something in your code and you want me to see it, me to check it, me to make sure it's okay, it will need to be public so you can send it to me. We want to add a README file. What a README file does is it's where we write about the repository, what code's in there and what you've done. The only reason we necessarily need a README file now is because it allows us to make the code space, which is the thing we're going to be coding in, the most easily. Choose a license. Well, no one's going to steal our code and it doesn't matter, but just for safety, let's choose an MIT license. Then I'm going to create repository. Right, so here is my code space. Sorry, here is my GitHub repository. And if I want to, so if I, let's say, let's just go to GitHub. If I go to GitHub, let's go to the home page, and I want to get back to that repository, I can either go to here, which is my most recent repository. I can click my user, I can go to my repositories, and I can click on this one. There we go, Python learning repo. So it's the same thing on each of these pages. I'm going to delete that one. So there's a few things to using GitHub. The first thing is that generally, when we're coding, we don't want to code in a place that will affect the main code. So really, GitHub is for putting code that goes into apps and websites and things. And generally, you want a version of that code that is the working code, or we call the main code, which the website builds from. But we also want versions where we're adapting it and changing it and making it work. And what happens is on GitHub, we make some main code, and that's what our website or app, whatever, builds from. And then we want to make changes, we make them in a thing called a branch. The branches allow us to make changes to that code without affecting the version of the code that's published. And then when we think that that's all right and all working, we can merge the branch back into the main code, so then that will affect the website. We don't necessarily need to worry about that for the course, but it's worth knowing anyway. And if you're on the GitHub website and you want to make a new branch so you can not affect your main code, you can click here. You can type the name for your new branch. So I'm going to call this tutorial-branch-1. And I could click there to create branch from main. We're not going to do that. I think for these tutorials, we're going to do all of our coding on main, which is technically, for a collaborative environment, bad practice, but it means we won't have any issues with trying to merge code from our branches back to our main code if, say, you want to share the code with me. Wonderful. Right, so we have a place to store code online. Now we need a place to code online. If you see here, there's a green button. If you're colorblind, it might not appear green, but it does say code. You want to click down there, and you want to click on Codespaces. Right, so GitHub allows everyone with an account to create Codespaces and code online in their cloud platform for free for a certain number of hours a month. It is quite a high number of hours a month, so it's highly unlikely that you are going to go over that just doing workshops and some personal projects. So that's really exciting. To create our first code space, we can either click the green button to create code space on main. If you are in a different branch, it will say create code space on and then the branch name. If you already have code spaces, they'll be here. And if you just want to make another one, not using the green button, it does the same thing. You can click the plus. I'm going to click the green button because it's more fun. Right. It's going to take a little while to load. It's not going to take a little while to load. That was very quick. Normally, it takes absolutely ages. So you can see here that this is somewhere to code. You actually can't see that yet, I suppose. So this is a web version of an app or a program for computers called VS Code. VS Code is Visual Studio Code, and it's a Microsoft-owned platform for coding. It's called an IDE, which is Interactive Development Environment. If I say IDE in a workshop, I just mean somewhere we can code that's not just a notepad. Let's do a little tour, first of all. So this here at the bottom is the terminal. We type in here the similar to how we type in the command shop prompt or the PowerShell when we want to talk directly to the computer. So this Codespaces is actually running in the cloud, a computer that we're interacting with, and we can interact with it with buttons or using the terminal. Lots of the things we're doing will either appear in the terminal or be interacted with in the terminal. You can see here, here's the README that we made earlier, and it says we'll use this to store code from workshops. I'm going to X out that README. This bit here is where code will appear when we're typing it and when we're writing it once we've made a new file. To the left, at the moment, we've selected our file explorer. That's these two pieces of paper here. We can also search. We can enter source control. We won't worry about that yet. We can do debugging. Again, we won't worry about that yet. And we can install extensions. Actually, the first thing we're going to want to do for our setup is install extensions. So let's click here. And we need to install 2 extensions. We need to install, and luckily it's popped up for us. If it doesn't pop up, we can search in the search bar. We want to install Python, so just click and it will install. See, it says installing there. And we want to install Jupyter. Click installing. There we go. When those are both installed, so Python is currently installing and Jupyter is installed, we can move on. There we go, both installed. Is it telling me I need to restart? It's not. Okay. So if you want to head to extensions without clicking there, you can press Control-Shift-X. I now want to head to my file explorer, which I could click, or I can press Control-Shift-E. There we go. This is our directory. This is how we interact with files. So on a Windows computer, you click through files to go to new files. On this, we'll end up getting drop downs to see a whole directory of files at once. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder. And I'm going to call this something like Python tutorial code, except I'm going to have underscores between these words because we need underscores for our directory, and I press enter. So this is a folder. You can see there's an arrow next to it, and I can expand it and close it. There's nothing inside it yet, so it expands to nothing. So I did that with the little plus folder button. I'm now going to press the new file button, and I'm going to make a file to start coding some Python in. I'm going to call this module _1, and then this is a really, really important thing. I'm going to type .ipynb. The ipynb is short for IPython Notebook. IPython notebooks are the things for the workshops we're going to be coding Python in. And they're just a nice way to run little bits of code at a time over and over again, which is really useful for workshops. They're also used a lot for data analysis, but we won't worry about that. Just know that we need to call it the name of the file using underscores between words, .ipynb. I'm going to hit enter. There we go. We got a new file. It's going to detect kernels, which is trying to find the cloud computer we're running this on. And here we go, Python 3.10.13. And here's a box I can code in. What I'm actually going to do for myself is I'm going to click in this empty space here, and I'm going to press Control, Shift, and P. This opens, you can see here, the palette. This is where we can talk to VS Code without going through menus to change settings about VS Code, the IDE that we're in. And I'm actually going to search for the word color, but spelling color the American way. And I'm going to click on color theme. At the moment, we are in, oh, let me try that again. At the moment, we are in the light mode. I don't like the light mode. It's kind of unclear to me. I am going to click dark plus default dark. There we go. This has changed VS Code to be dark mode. It's just what I prefer to look at. If you use a different color scheme to me, do know that the colors of the text will look different between us. So say I type something like a variable, so like x equals 1. You can see here, and I'm actually going to zoom in, that the x is blue, the equals is white, and the 1 is green. If you're in a different color scheme, and actually let's do this, let's go to color theme, and let's go to light plus. Actually, light plus, interestingly, they are the same color. Default light, where's GitHub light default? There we go. They're both kind of bluish, and equals is red. So know that if you're using a different color scheme to me, everything will appear different. Right, let's just, to show that this works, run some code. So let's do something like x equals 1. Let's do y, that x should be lowercase. I have caps lock on, that's why. X equals 1, let's do y equals 2. And let's do z equals x plus y. And then let's just print z. What print does is it prints whatever is stored inside the variable z to the terminal. And this is, if you remember the terminal here. I can press run all, would run every single one of these boxes of code, or I can press just run here, which will run just this block. So let's run this. The first time you run this, it's going to connect to the cloud computer that's storing Python. And there we go. So it didn't print to the terminal, it printed to the notebook, but we can see it printed 3. I'm going to change x to 4. I'm going to change y to 3. I'm then going to make a new cell. So one of the things about notebooks compared to other ways of coding Python is you code in these cells, and you can run and execute different bits of code individually. So there we go. There's one cell, and I can run that separately. There we go. It says 7. Nothing's happened here. Let's now code I equals 1, j equals 4, print I plus j. Going to have that bracket the right way around and have a plus not equals there. Right, and I'm going to change that 4 to a 3. So if I press run here, it's only going to run that cell. See, that 7 went to a 6, and it hasn't run anything here. If I run that cell, what have I done wrong here? Oh, that j should be a lowercase, shouldn't it? See, expect mistakes. There we go. 1 plus 3 is 4. And each of these cells ran individually. If I now change that to a 2 and that to a 9, but I press the run all button, it's going to run everything. So that's a very, very basic of how we're going to interact with this interactive developer environment and how to get to it. So before each session, before the first session, you might end up here. You might watch the video and get to this point, and then wait with this ready before we start coding. But at some point, you're going to want to come to a session without having followed through all of the steps of the video. So let's see what happens if we haven't made the code space from scratch. So I'm going to X out of this and just close this code space. And let's go to just Google. And let's go to GitHub. So this is what you'll be doing on following sessions after the first session. So I'm at GitHub. I'm going to go to, in the top right, to go to my repositories. I'm going to go to my repository. I'm going to click Python Learning Repo, which is where my code is stored. And I'm going to go to the code button, and I'm going to go down. I'm going to see I didn't name this code space. You never saw me name this. It comes up with names automatically. I'm going to click on this. It's going to set up the code space. There we go. And we can see that in this code space, the code I have just written is saved. However, if I go to GitHub in another tab, and actually what's probably a really, really good idea if you're going to be attending workshops is that you put your repo in a, how do I do this? How do I bookmark this? I don't use Google Chrome. Well, it would be a really good idea if you bookmark this. There we go, bookmark this tab. Right, if I could see my bookmarks, where's view bookmarks? Show bookmark bar. There we go, all bookmarks. I'm actually going to drag that to there. So next time I come to a session, I can just click here and I go directly to this repo. We can see though that that folder and that file I made aren't on GitHub. This is because they are in this cloud computer at the moment. And actually, if you accidentally delete this cloud computer, or you wait, I think it's between 2 weeks and a month, and this cloud computer deletes itself, that code will never, ever go back to here. So what we need to do at the end of each session after we've coded is we go down to the terminal. And this might seem confusing, but it's the same step every single time, and I will run you through it in workshops. We need to tell GitHub which files we would like to send back to our repository to be saved for everywhere, not just on this computer. Because if you think about it, this cloud computer we're running is essentially like a normal computer, and we need to send our code from our normal computer back to GitHub to be saved on GitHub. Otherwise, it's just saved on a normal computer. So what we do is we type git add, so git space add. I'm going to zoom in once more just so it's a bit clearer. So git add, and then we put the path to the file that we want to save back to GitHub. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to go down to copy path, I'm going to paste, I'll probably get a warning, there we go, allow, and then that's the path to the file in my computer. I'm going to hit enter. I'm then going to type git status, and this will tell me which files I have said I would like to save. Right, so I've told GitHub which files I want to save. I've checked I've saved the right files. I now need to do a thing called committing, which is where you say, okay, I'm ready to commit back to GitHub the files I've said I want to save. And I'm going to add a message to them to say what that file does. So I'm going to say git commit with two M's, -m. The -m is short for message. And I need to write a message to say what I'm doing in my commit. So I'm going to do double quotes. I'm going to say something like first bit of workshop code. And I'm going to hit, I'm actually going to change that to a lowercase. And I'm going to hit enter. There we go. Right, so I've committed and I've said, yes, I'm ready for this code to go and the message is ready. Often you will do multiple commits before you actually send it back to GitHub. If I refresh here, there we go, that hasn't turned up here. The final step is that I need to push this code that I've committed to GitHub. And to push, I'm going to go git push. And if I am pushing to the branch from which I have, on which I have coded, I can just type origin and then capitals head. So git push lowercase origin capitals head. And what that will do is it'll push all of your commits back to GitHub on the branch that you coded them on. If you wanted to push them to a different branch, instead of origin head, you would write the name of the branch you wanted to push them to. So I'm going to hit enter. It's going to tell me all of the files it's changed and where they've gone. And I can go back to GitHub and I can refresh. And there we go, Python tutorial code and module 1.ipynb. And there's the coding I've done. So let's get rid of that tab. and that tab, and pretend we're coming to session 2. So I'm going to go to my bookmark. I'm in my repo. I can see the code I saved back to GitHub from last time. And I can either open the same code space from last time, which has the things that I had done on that code space, including anything I haven't committed, or if I only want to use the code that I've committed and pushed back to GitHub, I can make a new code space. So I'm just going to go to this one. I'm pretty much going to use the same code space every time. And it's going to set up. There we go. So one thing that you might want to do is you might want to go to this button here, and you want to go to the bottom. So you were going to the burger button, the 3 lines. We can go to File, we can go to Autosave. And we want to make sure that Autosave is ticked on. Autosave means that you don't have to worry about saving your code. Every time you make a change, it will save it. And I can just X out of here, then open the code space again, and the code will be saved in the code space. Remember, it's not going to be saved to GitHub unless you push it back. So one final time, just so it's really clear, I'm going to open a new tab, and I'm going to show you, if you've already set up your code space for the first time, what you do before every single workshop, before I start the content. So you go to your repo, you click the drop down for code, you either open a new code space or go to the code space you have, you load it up, you make sure once it's loaded that you're in the file ready to code. And if we want a new code and a new block, we press plus code, and we're good to go. That's everything. If you have any questions, email me. I can make follow-up videos. I can remake this video if there's anything that's unclear. But that's it. That's me. I hope everyone comes to the workshops. I hope everyone has a good time. I hope everyone learns a lot. I'm now going to work out how to stop the recording. And goodbye.